What's up, potheads and political junkies? You're watching Cannabis Culture News Live. I'm Jeremiah here at the Pod TV studios in Amsterdam, downtown Vancouver. Oh yeah, it's just about New Year's, guys. After Christmas already. Had a good holiday. I hope you guys did too. A lot of you guys were here for the Wednesday show, which was very cool. And on the Wednesday show, we were going to sort of talk about what happened during the year and that kind of stuff. We didn't really end up doing that very much. We ended up just sort of bullshitting a bit and hanging out with you guys, as we usually do on the Wednesday show, which is lots of fun. But yeah, so I thought we'd go back through some of the stories, and actually I've been up all night writing a story for you guys, which is on the front page of Cannabis Culture right now, and it's a retrospective of the 2011 year. Went back over everything that happened this year, and, well, all the major stuff. I think I had 9 points in my final essay. And if you guys look through that essay, which you can find on the front page of Cannabis Culture, and you find anything that I missed, or you think there's any important stories that I'm not covering there, then let me know. Maybe throw it in the chat, and maybe Marius will check it out if Marius is in the house. He's doing something over there. I don't know what he's doing. And Marijuana Man's in the house, doing some editing over there. I don't see his camera loaded into the. Does your camera work, Greg?
Let's see. Oh yeah, there it is. Yeah, I'm editing Joey's show at this moment, so I'll be listening to you guys in the background and look for Joey's show online tonight.
Cool headphones.
Alright, let's see what
Awesome. Marijuana Man over at the video desk doing some editing in the Pod TV studios. So yeah, 2011. We're already at the end. I think, what is tomorrow is New Year's, Marius? Or tomorrow is New Year's?
Sunday.
Sunday is New Year's. Okay, well tomorrow is New Year's Eve then. Yes, you'd think I'd know if it was New Year's Eve tonight. I'd already be loaded. No, I'm just joking. Sort of. Yeah. Trying not to drink so much these days. I did drink a little bit over Christmas, and I'm still paying for it, I think. Even now, I was so incapacitated and completely loaded drunk that Marius, look, we got a little bit of space here today.
Right on.
Princess, here I can move her to the other side possibly. If that makes it a little easier on you.
Hey everyone, almost Happy New Year everyone.
Woo-hoo. How was your holiday, Marius?
It was alright.
Yeah?
Yeah, it was okay.
Did you see any family or anything like that? Did you check out your family for the holidays?
No, my family and I don't get along.
No?
They're hardcore Catholic, anti-marijuana, so there's nothing for us to say or do.
Go over and smoke a big fat one.
Celebrate.
That's how it goes sometimes, man. You can't win them all.
No.
Can't win them all. Yeah, so, and I'm sure that, did you have any delicious foods or anything like that? Or did you just bologna sandwich it or something?
Let's not talk about it, Jeremiah.
Bologna sandwiches.
You know, some families are good to talk about, others are not. Mine is definitely not one of them.
Poor guy, poor guy. See, next year when we stay home, I went to the island this year for Christmas, but next year when we stay home, every 2 years we have a Scraggler's Christmas, and so those who have nowhere else to go are quite welcome to come over and take part in our Orphans Christmas. All right, well, let's get into some stuff here, because I got a lot to play for you. I got way too many videos again. I don't think we're going to be able to get through all of them, as I usually have too many. And so I'm going to go through a lot of the stories, or at least some of my favorite little things that happened this year, and some of the things that I don't think are very good either that we should probably talk about. But I guess, really, let's bring it up here on my iPad. We should start with... start exactly where I started on the top of the list, which is the celebrations of the cannabis culture. That was kind of the thing that I led with. It's a positive note. And of course, in Canada here, we do have a lot of celebrations of our cannabis culture. We have 420 on April 20th, of course. We have Cannabis Day on July 1st. And in Toronto and here in Vancouver and other places, we have the Global Marijuana March, which is in May. And we also have the Toronto Freedom Festival, which is a big, massive, huge gathering. And if you guys haven't seen any of that stuff, it's pretty cool. You're not able to connect? You look sad.
Working on it. It's working on it.
Yeah, so there are a lot of celebrations across Canada, and it's not just the big protests that we have. There's also other types of celebrations of the plant itself and what it's good for. and they come more of a commercial side of things. They have the expos, like the Treating Yourself Expo that we had the last couple of years. I think it's going into the 3rd annual now. Marco Renda of Treating Yourself magazine has thrown that for the last 2 years in Toronto. And it's been a good time. The first year was a little shaky. The second year was pretty awesome. Last year was fantastic. I'm going to play an old video clip from that I compiled a while ago after the I think David Malmo-Levine's in the house.
Hey, how's it going, potheads? Woo-woo. Political junkies.
Hey, that's right, baby.
There you go, Merry Christmas, Mark.
Thank you, David.
Little
Slang propaganda.
No, just, a little copyright violation.
Oh, yeah.
Christmas time.
Show that to the camera.
Yeah. I like to save money on Christmas presents and have something sort of personal and useful at the same time. Did you get a chance to listen to it?
I haven't had a chance to listen to it yet, David, but I will. I promise you.
That's
I should have been listening to it over the holidays, I know.
That is the sound of my crest falling.
Sorry. That's a loud crest.
I'm heartbroken.
Well, I'll give it a shot. I'll give it a shot. I know, I really want to hear you rapping, David.
No, there's not a me on there. This is good songs worth stealing.
Redoing Run DMC tunes.
Oh, yeah. Hey, Greg's listening.
Greg's got his headphones
now.
on. Of course he does.
Alright, see you guys later.
Bye, David.
Bye, David. Puffed up. Keep your heads held high.
Always. So, also, not just the Treating Yourself Expo, back into my celebration rant. It wasn't just the Treating Yourself Expo. I also attended last year the CannaMed Fair here in Vancouver, which was another expo, which was really cool, actually. It was the first annual. And I didn't have a chance to go to the Prairie Medicinal Cannabis Cup in July in Saskatoon, but I really wanted to. Our good friend Jeff out there at Skunk Funk threw that one, and he's always doing good stuff. I would have loved to have attended that. Didn't get a chance. But there's a lot of these things, and other cities, not just the majors, but some of the smaller ones have celebrations in their towns as well. We've often put stuff on the front page of Cannabis Culture, front pictures from there, and so it is a lot of fun. I'm going to play you guys now a little clip from our 420 last year. Now, I like this clip because it has Libby Davies in it. And Libby Davies, for those who don't know, I'm sure most of you probably do, but Libby Davies is the deputy leader of the NDP right now, who are the official opposition party of Canada. And Libby was nice enough to come to our rally and to give a little short speech there. So without further ado, I'm going to cue her up. Yeah, it was a cool crowd. Check out the crowd shots, and we all had a really great time there. This one was a little bit more political than usual for a 420. It's because we were leading up to Stephen Harper's nastiness, ugliness. I said I'm going to put on the show today the good, the bad, and the Stephen Harper of the last year. That's how ugly he is. All right, well, check this clip out. Libby Davies, she's fantastic.
She was the one who presented Mark Emery's positions in Parliament, and she has bravely come to speak to you today. So here she is, Libby Davies, the Member of Parliament for the NDP in Vancouver East.
Woo! Hi everybody. Let's bring it out there. Well, I'm just going to say a very few brief words, but I wanted to come by and say hello, because as you know, we've got a federal election underway. And I've been one of the people in Parliament who's been speaking out and saying that the drug laws that we have in Canada, not only are they not working, they're actually harmful. And I want to see reforms take place, we're going to see changes take place, and we know that one of the things that Harper said he's going to do when the Parliament returns, if he gets elected, is that he's going to bring back the minimum mandatory sentencing for drug crimes, S10. And I know there are many people here who fought it the first time around, like we did in the NDP. And so when this bill comes back, we've got to say, no, this is a bad bill. It's not going to deal with any issues. It's only going to criminalize drug users, and this is not the kind of law that we want to see in this country. So I say no to the war on drugs. Woo! I also want to say that, I think it's really unfortunate that Mark Emery, that I know many of us support and have followed, that he's still incarcerated in the United States, and he just lost his bid, his first bid to come back to Canada. I want you to know that from day one, we've supported him and wanted him to be able to serve his time in Canada. He should never have been extradited in the first place. And when the DEA came to Canada and they decided to make an example of him, we knew that we had to stand up for Canadian sovereignty, we had to stand up for Mark Emery and his rights, and so I want to commit and I'm going to continue to work on that issue and to make sure that we can get him back to Canada where he's part of his community. I know he's got a big following, so don't lose the hope, don't lose support for Mark Emery. We need to have him back in Canada. And the last point I want to make is that I just visited the BC Compassion Club on Commercial Drive, and I know that compassion clubs across the country are amazing places that help people with medical marijuana. And I find it very concerning and disturbing that our federal government is still trying to make the medical marijuana program, such as it is, so difficult that people can't access it and use it. So this is another issue that we have to take up to say that medical marijuana is a legitimate issue, it's helping people. And I want to say to the compassion clubs here in Vancouver and across the country, you do amazing work. And thank you for helping so many people and doing it in a way that's principled and with integrity. So stay strong. We got a lot to take on this issue, but we say no to the war on drugs. We say to sensible decisions, realistic decisions on drug policy, no to criminalizing drug users. So stay strong and have a great day today. Thank you very much.
Let's give another big round of applause for the NDP MP for Vancouver East, Libby Davies. All right, everybody, I hope you're having a great 420. We are only about halfway through the day, and I'm going to let these guys get back on stage. Happy 420, everybody!
Woo. All right. Hey, who queued that back?
It wasn't me.
Wow, we just magically came back.
That's
That was
good.
mysterious.
Better than magically not coming
No
back.
kidding. I like when it glitches in our favor instead of shutting everything down. So yeah, that was cool. Libby at 420 and Mr. Jacob Hunter at 420, who did a great job last year organizing the entire event there. And we had a big, huge stage for the first time. And we had live bands and stuff. It was pretty cool. It was the biggest turnout we've ever had, actually. It was like 15,000 and 20,000 people here in Vancouver, so it was a pretty storming one. Cannabis Day wasn't quite as huge, but it was a rainy day and there were some problems. But both days we blocked all the traffic out on the sides off, basically, and shut the traffic down. So that was pretty cool. And the cops always come and are walking by our big, massive buckets of weed. It's getting a little low here. My stash. It's getting near the end of the week. We're gonna have to smoke this, Marius. All right. But yeah, here in Vancouver, for those who don't know, who are out there watching and don't have anything like 420 or the type of 420 that we have here, it turns out to be more of a cannabis farmers market than just a protest. At 420 in Vancouver, we have people openly selling marijuana all over the place, and it's not for medical purposes. And the police can't do a damn thing about it. They refuse to do anything about it here in Vancouver because of guys like David Levine, actually specifically David Levine, who came up with hug power. And so if you're at a protest and the cops try and shut you down or they see you smoking pot and they try and grab one of you and take you away, all you have to do is hug the person who's getting taken away. As many people as they can, jump on that guy. Hug, 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 hug power. The cops can't arrest everybody if there's 50 to 60 people hugging you. And so it really shuts them down in a peaceful way that is not offensive and allows them to basically, it doesn't give them a choice. It allows us to keep on smoking. So, yeah, the rig rallies. Hug Power. Have you ever been part of Hug Power?
No, I haven't been at a rally in which that was necessary. Though I was going to say that that may not work in every single place because some
true.
American police they will just spray you no matter what kind of power you're using.
Well, and it's true, and we've seen with the Occupy protests, obviously some of these nutty cops spraying their pepper spray all over the place. But yeah, it's true. Obviously, use your better judgment. If they're swinging their batons towards your face, you might want to duck and cover rather than just hugging.
But still, on principle, it's the best thing to do.
Yes, yes. No, it is, and it's peaceful, so it doesn't hurt anybody. But as you say, I mean, obviously, sometimes these cops just don't care. Here in Vancouver, we do fairly well with that kind of
We're
thing.
really lucky with the way the police have responded to our movement here.
Right, because I don't know how many people actually saw the footage of the G20 event in Toronto, at the big crazy protest where the cops basically stormed over top of peaceful protesters who were sitting on the ground singing the Canadian national anthem. It came through swinging their batons and crunching people and locked them all away in these crazy jails and molested them and did all kinds of horrible things to them. So even here in Canada, it's not perfect all the time, you know? There's cops that are working against people in small towns throughout Canada as well. We'll get to some more of that stuff on the list a little bit later, some of the other things that have happened this year and the police being involved in it. But before we do that, I wanted to play another video, but it's just about 420, so we better smoke first. Marius, do you want to hit this one on 420?
Sure.
All right, we're 1 minute away. 419, got a minute?
Lighter there.
Oh, that's a good tool to have for something like that. All right. So, Princess, there was actually a scare over the Christmas holiday. I was called at home, and somebody said, "Is Princess broken?" And I said, "What? No, I don't think so." And I had heard that the other one of the smaller bong, the 26-inch bong that I had downstairs, that one got smashed over the holidays. And I had already heard that, so when I got the call, I was like, "What? They didn't both get smashed, did they?" But no, Princess was safe.
Well, thank
Princess was safe.
Happy 420.
Oh, happy 420!
Happy 420.
Who was that?
It isn't even.
It is now on mine.
That's the longest. Oh,
Mine
happy
says
420.
Woo! Happy 420, everybody. I'll type it into the chat.
Which is good because we're usually a few minutes late.
Yeah. Happy 423. So now, although we did get verification on the Wednesday show from a chat person, so I don't know how credible it is, but I think it is, because we were talking earlier about these high guys not being available anymore in Canada. And somebody said, that's hogwash. They have to be available. They have a Canada flag on them. But supposedly there was a call put into CCHQ downstairs, and we cannot get high guys anymore. They don't make them anymore.
He sold it to
China? That is a shame.
very
So-
much a shame.
Princess, we're going to protect her very well.
Sure.
That's right. Yeah, and I mean, they were great bombs. And where else can you, like, if you want a Ruhr this size, we were talking to Al about it, you have to get it fused together, the actual different tubes.
Every bomb since the Prince of Pop bomb has been a high guy.
That's right. Yeah. I love the high guy bombs. Just the straight pipe. Nothing gets in the way of you and your hoot. Alright, so I'm going to hit this. And then we'll play the video for you guys. I know you're chomping at the bit. Many of you have probably already seen these videos, or some of them at least. I will play a couple that I've never played on the show before. That doesn't mean you haven't seen them, I guess. But yeah, some of these, my favorite ones, we have played on the show before. I can't really remember if we played the Treating Yourself on the show before, or if it came up sometime afterwards. But it was fun. I know Jody likes this video. It has some cool music in it, actually. I'm gonna hit this guy, girl. What are y'all smoking out there? What the hell's going on here? Well, that was a half-ass hoop, but it was still delicious.
Some Purple Kush.
Purple Kush.
Blue Dream. Exodus
Exodus cheese.
Exodus cheese. I love Kush. Kush is my favorite.
Kush, Kush, Kush. In fact, we're smoking OG Kush right now.
Right on.
I think. I do believe it. Tastes like it. Okay, well, we got high. 420, smoking. Okay, so there's a few little cool clips in this one. Toronto, Treating Yourself Expo. If you didn't go last year, try and make it next year. It was very cool. Marius, you weren't there last year. You had to hold down the fort around here.
That's right.
See, here in Vancouver, we also have a Global Marijuana March. Oh, I'm sorry, that's at the Global Marijuana March. That's not during the Treating Yourself Expo. But we always need people to hold down the fort around here. When I was talking before about the Global Marijuana March, they don't just have it in Toronto. They do have one here as well. It's not quite as big. And actually, a few years ago when I stayed here and everybody else had gone to Toronto, we actually had to use Hug Power that year here in Vancouver. You know, I should have had that video. That's not of 2011 now. But yeah, David and I and a few other people had to use Hug Power. There was a police officer at the art gallery who was going crazy and trying to arrest the other marijuana man, actually, Stephen. They were trying to arrest him, but but they weren't successful because we hug-powered them out of it. But anyways, getting distracted, tangents. Okay, Treating Yourself Expo, check it out.
Fantastic. It's even better than the first year. It's like the comic book convention of cannabis. I mean, you can go around looking for all sorts of different seeds from either like the seed bank, which I think there's like 30 something, and then you can talk to the seed breeder, actually the guy who makes the seed, the company. It's like talking to the CEO of that breed, so you can find out the seeds that you want. It's been unbelievable. That all these seed breeders are here to talk to learn about their genetics, to learn about their methods, to learn about their seeds correctly, which has like expanded my mind dramatically. It's been a great experience. I think Treating Yourself magazine has done a fantastic job putting this on.
Cannabis merchandisers from all over the world, not just in Canada, but we got every country who's doing big things in the cannabis movement here, representing all the Dutch seed companies, all the great Canadian companies who've been active in doing their part here, and a lot of Americans coming up and enjoying the event, and a lot of American attendees, and even from all over the world attendees this year. Marco Ren has been telling me, so it's a great event. The Metro Convention Center, we're going mainstream with this stuff, so you get 10,000 people on a Saturday all filing through this convention center. It's a great thing for our movement.
We've had a phenomenal time, second year in a row. The unification here, the vibe here, the electricity that went on all weekend long. I just can't say enough about it. We doubled our attendance. All the vendors are extremely happy, and we've been told that we're getting even more vendors next year that just came to visit the show because they saw last year wasn't so-so, and then they saw how I blew it up this year, and he says, we're damn going to be here, we're not going to miss it. And all the activists that were here, everybody working together as one, LEAP, Patients at a Time, we have the POCOA, we have, End Prohibition, Why Prohibition, Cannabis Culture, Free Mark Emery, and all of it down here. The speakers like Irv Rosenfeld, one of the 4 remaining patients that gets 300 pre-rolled joints from the U.S. federal government. That in itself should tell you governments are sick. When they can ship 300 joints to someone and then turn around and get the DEA to raid dispensaries and say that cannabis isn't medicine, they're full of shit.
Who else was here, Marco? Tell me more about the event.
Well, we had Voice Canna Fresh, Corner 420, Advanced Nutrients, Medical Marijuana.ca from BC, Maple Leaf Flat Products. We got the Herbal Air. We got the Volcano. Oh yeah, the Vapor Lounge. I've never seen it so damn busy. You couldn't find a seat in there. A 4,200 square foot Vapor Lounge, and you can't even find this chair. So that in itself should say something.
Otherwise, you never get high, man. Inhale. Keep it in for about 20 seconds. Hi, Amy Brown. Blow it out again. And then maybe something is happening. If not, you do it again.
So obviously a major success. Does the planning for next year start already?
It's starting tomorrow. As soon as I get to my office, we start. Because May 24th to the 27th is the 3rd annual Treating Yourself Expo. Come on up and join us and help us help you make marijuana legalized.
Treating Yourself Expo. I had a lot of fun at the last event when we were there. Jody, she moved out of the way of the camera. You saw Jody in the video. She was there with Karina.
Waving at the camera.
It was a lot of fun, wasn't it?
It was a lot of fun. I actually ranked that among one of the top experiences of the year. That and Seattle Hemp Fest.
Yes.
And the Global Marijuana March too, though. So
there's a lot of options there. It was a good year.
It was a good year.
It was a very good year, actually.
Yeah, it was.
And there was, of course, some bad too. I mean, as I said in some of my stuff here, it was a roller coaster ride. There was some really high peaks and some low valleys.
Oh, for sure.
But yeah, the Treating Yourself Expo, I thought, Jody, were you there the first year?
No, I was
there
not
the
there.
first
I was visiting Mark in Seattle.
Right.
And
I was there.
Yeah, you were there.
I
There
was
was a
there.
kerfuffle about
Oh, the T-shirts. And
T-shirts or
yeah,
something.
there was some stuff. Marco used to be not maybe as nice as he was about certain things. We had sort of there was a rift between the Vancouver community and Marco and his guys.
But I think it's always best to forgive and not quite forget, but move on. You know, it's make peace with people because this is what I was facing. Should I, if I have a feud with him, which I did, I'm going to say that we had a feud against each other. But when everybody else I know who doesn't have a feud with him because they're not involved in our situation, they're all going to this expo. How does it help me in any way to sit at home and be like, oh, I don't like that guy, and they shouldn't like the guy, and they shouldn't be there? Well, there is no rift between them. They're not part of the problem.
And the
so
thing
it's
is, when
stupid.
you end up
loss
going,
if I hold on to that anger, bitterness, and holding on to grudges never helps.
it's true.
It hurts.
Because you end up resolving your differences
Yeah.
in the end. I mean, in this particular case, it did happen. But just in general, there would be no way you could have resolved it if you didn't go.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, it was a very nice peacemaking process.
Yeah.
Which
And
is what
Marco,
the years-
he did a great job, I thought, of
I think so
organizing
too.
this
That's why I
actually.
loved the video and I loved being there. It really was a phenomenal achievement. I wish we could do something on that scale here.
Yeah.
But it's great that he did.
I talked a little bit about the Cannabis Fair, and that was a lot of fun too. I don't have the video of that. I chose just one or the other, but we do have a good video of the Cannabis Fair, actually. We have a video of Jody doing some Cannabis Fair stuff. I don't have it here, but we have it on Cannabis Culture.
Yeah.
Oh, I went through so many stories since yesterday, just going through all of our old
Didn't
stuff.
sleep at all,
Tons of stuff,
apparently.
tons of stories. Yeah, sometimes it happens. I'll sleep when I'm dead. So I wanted to go over the next story here, moving on to the next item on the list. It's already 4:30 and we've only gone through one item on the damn list. I knew this was going to happen. I knew it was going to happen. That's okay. We don't have to go through everything because everything is on the front page of Cannabis Culture. So you can always go there and find it. But I want to talk at least a little bit about each piece. So the second one I had was RV Murnau, which was the really cool court case that happened this year in Canada where a judge actually struck down the possession and production laws in Ontario, at least for a brief period, until the government appealed it and a stay was put on his striking down. But the judge himself, when he did this, was ruling in favor of Matt Murnau, who many of you watching probably know. Matt is an activist from Toronto who is a medical marijuana user and has been using it for a long time for a number of ailments, but using it illegally because no doctor would actually sign his forms and get him an MMAR. So he just did it anyway. And he grew a bunch of plants on his porch out in the open and wrote about it and eventually got busted. Went to court, and him and his fantastic lawyer, Paul Lewin, managed to convince the judge that doctors are acting as gatekeepers here in Canada and effectively boycotting the MMAR program, and basically meaning that people who need medicine are not able to get it because the doctors just won't give it to them. So this was a very cool court case. A lot of positive things came out of that, or could come out of that in the future. But of course, the Conservative government really doesn't care that much about these things. And this has happened before in Canada, when a judge will rule out part of the law. It goes back to the federal government. They end up coming forward with some more regulations, really not changing it very much. They did it a few years ago about caretakers, about rather than being just allowed to give your card to a caretaker to grow for you. The judge said it was not good enough to have one person for one person. The Conservatives came back and said, well, 2 people, you can share it with 2 people, and so they raised it by 1 rather than. So it's horse shit basically the way they do it, and they just draw it out. But at least it's happening in the courts, and there are a few judges left who are on our side. So I did have a little video here. I think I did anyway. I don't see it there anymore. There it is. So we'll play this one. I think this was from CTV. I honestly can't remember, but I'm sure. Oh, there it is. Global, yes. Good eye. I'm blind. Okay. Yes, global. And I believe, the clip will explain itself. No more talking. Enjoy.
A judge has ruled Canada's marijuana laws are unconstitutional. The surprising decision is aimed at forcing Health Canada to change its medical marijuana program, described as slow and arbitrary. And as our health specialist Jennifer Tryon reports, the ruling and the fight could have implications across the country.
As you know, we've won. We did it. We did it.
In 90 days, marijuana could be legal in Ontario.
I don't think anybody thought we'd get that.
That's the ultimatum the Ontario court has given Health Canada to force the government to clean up the medical marijuana program.
We are on the path to something very big.
10,000 Canadians, like Matt, like Rob, and like Aaron, who are sick or injured, have licenses from Health Canada for medical marijuana.
They've allowed us to have it, but they haven't given us any system to obtain it.
They say doctors refuse to prescribe it, and if they do, it's not like a pharmacy. Supply takes months. Rob was arrested, his house raided because Health Canada took 9 months to renew a license he's already had with them for 13 years, making his medicine illegal.
When I got back out of jail, 10 hours later, everything was trashed. My plants were all dead. I had no water in my house.
Erin broke her back twice and is in constant pain. Only enough marijuana for a few hours relief. She needs 10 times the amount. Health Canada won't budge. The court says that's too rigid.
I wish the government would make it easier for me and my fellow sick and dying Canadians to get access to this medicine.
The decision is a big win, but don't exhale just yet. Health Canada is considering an appeal.
Health Canada should, instead of trying to fight this, they should say, you know what, we're going to do something about this.
So Canadians don't have to fight for a medication they've already won the right to have. Jennifer Tryon, Global News.
Hey, it's going back automatically now. That's pretty cool. I don't even have to hit the button anymore. Now it puts you right back live.
Maybe it's with the new camera.
Maybe it is. You see Paul Lewin's mustache? I love that mustache. He really looks like a Wild West bartender. He needs the striped shirt.
The character from Deadwood.
Yes, exactly. The curly cues. So that was cool. It was a great clip. Matt is fantastic, and Matt's actually been on the show here. For those who are regular watchers, you've probably seen him on here before. I think he's been on a couple times probably. He's definitely been on more than once. Maybe 3 or 4 times over the phone as well.
He has a blog on our front page.
He does. Oh, walking down the stairs.
Kicking off my heels.
Yes, Matt does blog on Cannabis Culture, and in fact, he does have a blog post on the front page of CC right now, and I believe it's the 10 best strains of 2011, and there's 11 of them. He couldn't pick. He couldn't decide on just 10. He had to have 11.
11 for
But he still called
2011. That's
exactly.
Good. That's good.
It makes sense. Matt is hilarious as well. He's not just a great activist, but he's also a comedian, and I enjoy laughing back and forth with him. He's criticized us on the show before. He says we don't smoke enough, and so he's probably right about that sometimes. But all right, well here, let's see what else we got here. It's already 4:39. We're not going quite as fast as I wanted to, but we're moving on to the next issue now. Third one down on my list was Mr. Mark Emery. And it's a good thing we have Jody here, because maybe Jody can talk about a little bit about the We the People.
Yeah, we found out about that whitehouse.org or .gov website had a We the People campaign where people can submit petitions and get a response from the White House. And a number of Americans emailed me and said, you should post something. But as a Canadian, I couldn't do it, but I provided one of those people with a text taken from a petition we had here in Canada and just making it a bit shorter and applicable to the petition on the U.S. government website. So Tyler posted it, and he helped us get a bunch of signatures. We got over 5,000 signatures within the first
couple of weeks.
Yeah, it was pretty quick. And then the White House upped the limit to get a response to 25,000 signatures. But we came in under the threshold, and so we did wait for a formal response. And we got one, and it was basically a non-response because they said that
the response was we
the
can't make a
heading says no
response.
comment. It actually says no comment on it, and then underneath it says we can't comment because the president consults with the Justice Department to decide who to pardon. So you need to apply for a pardon through this process, and you know, good luck with that. But it was basically just a non-response. So we did, however, get news media attention out of it. You know, people campaigned and felt like they were helping us, and they were. So everybody who signed that petition, we're very grateful for your help. And as always, Tommy Chong, who stopped by today and the other day before I left,
yeah, he was here today
hangs
too.
out quite a bit. He's in town.
He's always here.
It's a good time, but he came by.
It's a selling point for this place.
He came by one time and did this video to President Obama. So let's, I guess, check that out.
Hi, I'm Tommy Chong. I just got off the phone with a friend of mine who's running a compassion club, Cannabis Compassion Club in Los Angeles. And he was on his way to jail. Was actually on his way to turn himself into the feds to face 8 counts of basically operating a marijuana compassion club. And apparently the Obama administration with Eric Holder are cracking down on all the compassion clubs in California, in Los Angeles for sure, and threatening the landlords and the people with jail time and forfeitures and so on. So I think it's time that we started making our voices a little louder in protest. And one really good way to protest is to sign a petition that we have for to free Mark Emery. And so the way to do that, I'm asking everybody out there to go to this website, sign the petition, let America know, especially the Obama administration, know that Mark Emery is in jail for one of America's ridiculous drug laws, and he should be released immediately. So sign the petition, and then go get high. But get high after you go to this site.
Get high after. Good advice. Let's get high right now. Yeah, so that was nice of Tommy. And actually, Tommy, we'll be talking a little bit further down the list about Tommy again, because he also endorsed Mr. Dana Larson in his run for the leadership of the BC NDP, which was very cool. And he actually did like a live show here, a special showing in Vancouver, up on stage.
Do you have that video too?
I don't have, well, I have it around, but it's really long. And if you guys want to find any of these things, you can go to Cannabis Culture and find them. They're all over the place. And actually, they're all in that article that's on the front page right now. I do link to Tommy's performance, that kind of stuff, so check it out. All right, Marius, did you have another puff? Oh, you got a joint in your hand.
I rolled us a joint.
Would you like a bomb rip?
No, why don't you have that one later? I'm more of a joint person.
You're a joint person? Okay.
Since it's ready to go.
Well, spark her up. Spark her up, and I'll keep talking. All right. So, yeah, the pardon, that was very cool, and it did get a lot of media attention. It seems like the media are just itching for something to publish about Mark. We should probably be giving them more opportunities or finding, like, ridiculous things to inflate to media-worthy status just for the publicity. Media hoard up. No. Well, it's cool when the media do pay attention, though. Especially here in Vancouver, they really do love Mark a lot here. Even though the government is antagonistic, the media isn't always. Although they do tend to have those little jabs in there, here and there. Self-proclaimed Prince of Pot, even though it wasn't self-proclaimed. All right. Oh, that's good weed. So, the fourth one down on my list here was new activist groups join front lines of the drug war. So in 2011, we saw the launching, basically, of a bunch of different activist groups. A few of them earlier in the year, there was the CAMCD, which is a union of the medical marijuana dispensaries across Canada, or some of the larger ones. So they've been doing some work trying to refine themselves, self-regulate their dispensaries in order to maybe move forward and become part of a new regulatory scheme that the Conservatives are crafting. And also, we had GK of CAMCD on the show, and he was fantastic. And it was very cool because later, this is a bit of a tangent, but GK, I'll try and put this in the, I will put this in the show notes afterwards. When he came on the show, I'll put the link to that. But I'm also going to put on a talk that he gave, a TED talk that he gave about psychedelic festivals, about music festivals, electronic music festivals where everybody's taking drugs and going crazy and having enlightening experiences.
I'm a big fan of those.
Like I did at Shambhala last year. It was fantastic. But yeah, GK was a cool guy, and he was representing CAMCD. They seemed like a really great group, and I'm sure we'll be seeing a lot more from them. There was also the Stop the Violence BC group. Pardon me. Need a little sip here. Take it, Marius. Stop the Violence BC. So a group of professionals, including doctors, law enforcement professionals, and basically a sampling of different groups of people from all over the place that are involved in a lot of these things came together. A lot of weed. And started the Stop the Violence thing. We went to a couple of their conferences, or one of them at least, and it was pretty cool. Down to the Wire, it was called, here in Vancouver. It was pretty awesome. Dr. Evan Wood he's the chair, I guess, of it. And they released a few papers, and at the same time as they did their launch and released their first paper, they also released an Angus Reid poll that showed that 70%, basically 69, I believe it was, percent, or maybe it was 59. Hold on here, let me get the exact quote. How many people was it? I want the percentage. 69% of British Columbians polled think arresting marijuana producers and sellers is ineffective, and BC would be better off taxing and regulating marijuana. So right out of the gate, Stop the Violence BC had a lot of great information. It looked like a very positive launch. We did have a few little criticisms here and there about how they were describing marijuana sometimes as being dangerous and that kind of thing. But overall, they seemed to be very successful at the beginning. And then, a few weeks after they launched, they managed to convince 4 former mayors of Vancouver to come together as well. And basically be a super mayor team against the drug war here in Vancouver, at least against marijuana prohibition in Vancouver. And then afterwards, Gregor, that sort of laid the cement for Gregor to be able to come out in his bare feet and not be too hurt by and actually, if anybody out there knows about what happened with Gregor, there were some other criticisms of Gregor published on Cannabis Culture because he's here in office and 4 mayors had just come out and Gregor was still not saying much of anything. But Gregor is the best mayor of Vancouver, I think, in the last election that I would have voted for if I lived here in Vancouver. And he has now come out, as we'll see in the video I'm going to play here, and said that marijuana prohibition is a failure, doesn't work. And so I'm impressed with Gregor. I'm impressed with the 4 mayors. I'm impressed with Stop the Violence BC. I think they've all done a pretty good job. And when we get back, I'll talk to you about one of the other groups. But let's just watch this first. This is Vancouver mayors endorse the legalization. This is just a short clip. And then I'll probably play a longer one for you as well. But taste this one first.
Former Vancouver mayors Sam Sullivan, Larry Campbell, Philip Owen, and Mike Harcourt are teaming up to support the legalization of marijuana. Shahid Devji joins us live with more now. Shahid, this initiative isn't just about ending prohibition.
No, Colleen, it's not. The 4 mayors want marijuana to be regulated for a couple of reasons. One being crime reduction, the other so the province's economy can benefit. BC is known for its beautiful mountains, its bodies of water, and its BC bud. The underground economy for marijuana is said to be in the billions and a large contributor to gang activity.
It just seems ridiculous that we are allowing criminals to make so much money off drugs.
So former Vancouver Mayor Sam Sullivan, along with his counterparts Philip Owen, Mike Harcourt, and Larry Campbell, are saying it's time to legalize marijuana.
These guys are in the criminal world, are getting all this money tax-free, and the taxpayer is stuck with all the social and health costs. That's just unreasonable.
The mayors have teamed up with Stop the Violence BC, a coalition seeking the legalization and regulation of pot.
If we took a public health approach, we could deal with this issue in a much more rational way that would protect young people from the harms of cannabis, it would raise tax revenue, and it would totally eliminate this violence that we're seeing in our communities.
One of the local pioneers for legalization, Mark Emery, released a statement from his jail cell in the U.S., saying while it's hopeful that the 4 former mayors have made crystal clear the urgency and necessity of ending prohibition, it remains disturbing that virtually no politician currently in elected office at any level advocates this.
When you're in office, you have a lot of people depending on you, and they don't want you to say controversial things, so you're careful.
And politics is why criminologist Robert Gordon says legalization is unlikely.
Such a move would be entirely inconsistent with the platform that's been offered by the Federal Conservative Party, and they're the ones who are calling the shots here.
Do you think it's actually going to happen?
No, but I think it should, and I think we've got to keep stirring the pot.
But as much as they stir the pot, it's still up to the federal government to make changes to the criminal code, and with a conservative majority and a tough-on-crime agenda, it doesn't seem very imminent. Colleen?
All right, thanks, Shahid. 'Tis the season for holiday road.
All right. So the mayors, cool guys. Now that was before Gregor had come out, so you saw the clip, the little quote from Mark there as well, giving Gregor some criticism. But yeah, so shortly after that, like less than a week after, I guess, Gregor did come out, and then this clip made it out. Now, I've never played this clip before on the show. I had intended to play this for you guys a long time ago because it was kind of a sit-down thing with Dr. Evan Wood, and I really like it, actually. So I assume we're going to go a little bit over on today's show, and I hope you guys don't mind. If you want to stick around, keep checking us out. But yeah, so check this out. Dr. Evan Wood, he has like a little sit-down thing, but they also do talk to Gregor. Happy planet, Gregor.
Very much. Well, there is a new push to legalize and regulate marijuana in Canada, and it comes from a surprising source. 4 former mayors of Vancouver. They all sent a letter to members of municipal, provincial, and federal governments in BC saying ending the prohibition on pot would stamp out gang violence, bring in tax dollars, and build safer communities. Catherine Pope has more.
What do Philip Owen, Sam Sullivan, Mike Harcourt, and Larry Campbell have in common? Aside from being former mayors of Vancouver, they have all come out in favor of legalizing marijuana.
Legalize it and tax the daylights out of it. Well, Pierre Claude...
It's like cigarettes, then.
Just exactly like cigarettes, like tobacco and alcohol that kills 65,000 Canadians, just the same thing. And you get a tremendous amount of revenue out of it, and you'll take the criminal element out.
The mayors have written an open letter to BC MPs, MLAs, mayors, and councillors. They say marijuana prohibition is a failed policy which has fueled gang-related crime. A Fraser Institute report estimated that BC's illegal cannabis trade may be worth up to $7 billion annually.
The answer is regulate it, suppress it through government policy, tax it, charge people for it, you know, stop making it a loss through all the prisons, police, and everything else, and start turning it into a revenue generator.
They say they want to at least get people talking about it.
Do you think marijuana should be legalized?
Yeah, you sure. Why not? Sure.
Great idea. Yes. I think it should be controlled. It should be heavily controlled. However, it takes away so many instances, such as people wanting to commit a crime.
But the province's Attorney General says it's not on the radar.
It's an interesting discussion, but it's not a high priority for us at this point in time.
Well, why didn't you ever pursue this when you were mayor?
Maybe because I wanted to get reelected.
So he knows selling the idea will be tough, especially with the federal politicians who would ultimately be the ones to change the law.
Well, one of the men driving the Stop the Violence Coalition joins us now. Dr. Evan Wood is a lead researcher at the BC Centre for Excellence in HIV/AIDS and the founder of the International Centre for Science in Drug Policy. Thanks for coming in.
My pleasure.
So I wanted to ask you first, is that true, what Sam Sullivan referred to? Are politicians the problem?
Well, if you look at the polling data, they are, because there's just an extreme lack of trust among the electorate in BC in politicians to do something about this. About 70% of British Columbians want to see marijuana taxed and regulated, and the politicians are currently, 0% of politicians are promoting that. So there's a huge discordance there.
You are a medical doctor. You know what harm marijuana can cause.
Yeah.
Why are you advocating for legalizing it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we're talking about a strictly regulated market under a public health framework. As it stands now, and I should say, no one is advocating cannabis use. Cannabis is unsafe, and that's all the more reason to regulate it. By turning it over to a violent, unregulated market, that explains why young people have easier access to cannabis than alcohol and tobacco. So because of these health-related harms...
If you want to regulate it, though, won't there still be a black market for it?
Well, we don't for alcohol. We have a tiny black market, if you want to call it that, for tobacco. We tax these things to the point at which there's a threat of an illegal market emerging, and then that's where we sit. We maximize revenue. We drive down rates of use through that tax revenue. So because I'm in public health, and the Canadian Public Health Association, the Health Officers Council of British Columbia all agree this should be a regulated legal market that starves revenue to organized crime and, quite frankly, protects young people and everyone else much better than the current model that we have.
How hard would it be to lasso everybody who's growing pot right now? I mean,
illegally.
Illegally, because you think, okay, so we legalize it, and then so-and-so marijuana company shows up and they start selling it like cigarettes or alcohol. But there might be some guy who thinks, you know what, I don't want to do that. I'll just keep selling it out my back door to all my friends and make my money that way.
And not be taxed.
So let me respond to that in two ways. First of all, what we're trying to do is do that. And let's say by some miracle, let's say with the new mandatory minimum sentences that we put in, we can take 10% of the marijuana market away. That would have the perverse effect of making it that much more profitable for more people to grow marijuana. So certainly you cannot control this illegal market. It's just those laws of supply and demand. In terms of a legally regulated market and someone else coming along and growing marijuana, well, we don't see people making cigarettes. We don't see them making alcohol to a large degree. People could be free to do that, but we could have education campaigns around that.
I mean, people can start growing pot plants in their house, for example. That would be pretty common. Isn't it? It's easy to grow, isn't it?
Presumably, but that's the type of thing that would land you in front of the judge. Your tax dollars would be paying for the lawyers, the judges, locking people up. We're having an omnibus crime bill that proposes a mandatory minimum sentences for 5 marijuana plants. That's your tax dollars at work. If someone under a new regime that was regulated and generated tax revenue chose to grow one plant, I mean, the libertarian in me wants to say, if they're not hurting anyone else, I'd rather see the police chasing rapists and murderers and actually enforcing laws that can protect protect community health and safety rather than laws which have created a boon for organized crime and actually worsened community health and safety?
You're preaching the converted, because I think it should be legalized, but, and I don't even smoke it, but let me just play devil's advocate, two things here. One, there's a lot of people out there who say, okay, you legalize marijuana, now you've moved the fences out, so which drug next has to be legalized in a few years? Is it coke or what is it? And two, gangs were profiting in the States during Prohibition from bootlegging alcohol. When alcohol was legal, they found other things to make money at, and they didn't go away.
Okay, so let me address the second point first. This notion of drift, organized crime drift, to believe that implies that we're somehow making ourselves more safe through cannabis prohibition, like somehow we're protecting ourselves from these organized crime groups doing something else. If we take this cash cow away from them, they'll moderate their behavior like all humans do. They'll be forced to go to something that is less profitable and less easy to evade police. So that's exactly what we want them to do. Alcohol prohibition in the States ended. A huge, violent, illegal market went away. A huge opportunity to raise tax revenue emerged. Now, I'll say one thing about alcohol prohibition. In this province, we don't do a great job in terms of employing the regulatory tools that could be used to reduce health-related harm. Alcohol is not a safe drug. Liver disease, heart disease, high blood pressure, heart attack, stroke. I mean, the list goes on. It's very addictive. It's much more dangerous than cannabis. Violence associated with alcohol use, the drinking and driving and everything else. But we've allowed alcohol outlet density to expand. We've extended operating hours. So this is the conversation around the public health tools that could be employed for cannabis to actually reduce people's rates of use. Right now, organized crime's motive is profit. It's impossible to try and prevent people using it.
And the gateway drug idea?
It's been scientifically proven to be totally false. Alcohol and tobacco are the strongest things that predict subsequent going on to other drugs. This idea about marijuana is just absurd.
Dr. Wood, thank you so much.
Thanks so much for your interest.
Thanks for coming.
Okay.
Very interesting.
We'll be right back. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, just don't move that high chair. Don't do that.
All right, we're back. Dr. Evan Wood, I am very impressed with him for the most part. I really like a lot of what he has to say. Not everything, obviously, but for the most part, I thought that was a pretty cool interview. He hits all the topics right on, and he, answers those ridiculous reporters' silly questions. But yeah, he's pretty great, and he's a good advocate. So I'm sure we'll see more from those guys. They seem to be very active. So watch for them in 2012. Now, it's 5 on the dot right now, but we're just going to keep on rolling. And I'm going to take this bong rip. It'll be a 5 o'clock bong rip. I'm losing my voice here. I'm also really high from the joint we smoked, Marius. You don't know what weed that was?
I didn't ask this time.
Well, whatever it was delicious.
It was a very
and I'm super stoned.
Apple should be paying us.
That was a little better.
Computers,
yeah.
iPad.
We got Apple logos all over the place.
Yeah, well, just ask them to send us a free one.
Yeah.
Colbert does that all the time.
I wonder if they do, though.
Well, they send him.
Oh.
They send it to him for sure.
Yeah. They could send free Domino's or Pizza Hut. Getting rid of that. All right. So I think we should go ahead right away. See, the thing is, I wanted to get through this entire list with you guys, and I'm going to. But I also wanted to briefly talk about Ron Paul at the end of the show today and what's going on with him. So it's okay because I don't have that many more videos to play, but I do have a couple. And we're just going to move right on down the list here.
It's a year-end special edition.
That's right. Last one of the year. And if my voice lasts, we'll be fine.
I'll just mention that the other two organizations that you didn't mention was the Canadian Drug Policy Coalition, led by Donald McPherson, and they were very awesome. A group of people that have been working in Vancouver on the downtown east side during the major drug epidemic, cocaine, heroin, AIDS. And they all supported us as well. And the other group, the Canadian Association for Medical Cannabis Dispensaries. And I don't know about
Yes, CAMCD. We talked about them. They were the first ones I talked about. But yeah, Donald McPherson, he was fantastic. He actually came down here, right to where we were standing in the studio.
He was on the show a couple of weeks ago.
2 weeks ago. And so you can find that episode, of course. Actually, it's in this article. There's a link, I think, to it. And you can find it on cannabisculture.com.
Sorry to interrupt, but I did want to mention them because they're
Marius,
awesome.
you should be interrupting more often with those comments.
I'll get the hang of this.
You got it, brother. You're hanging like King Kong. All right, well.
That's good, I presume.
I guess. He did hang, so.
Oh, that's right.
I guess. He's the biggest monkey I could think
What was
of.
I thinking? I just watched the Planet of the Apes as well.
I did. Well, I just watched the Rise of the Planet of the Apes myself. I thought it was fantastic. I liked it a lot.
Odd how the drug that they were talking about that was supposed to help Alzheimer's does what cannabis does. So that happens a lot in movies. That
Maybe it was
drug
a subtle
companies
reference.
have an experimental drug and it does the same thing cannabis does, like it will cure cancer or prevent Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
But
that's
yeah,
funny.
the subtext is often there in these movies.
It was a lot of apes smoking big fatties.
Their eyes turn green.
That's right. No, doesn't it? It's like the old testing they did on those apes when they fed them all the weed and they deprived them of oxygen.
Oh yeah,
and
that was disgusting.
That
Yeah,
was
they
horrifying.
asphyxiated those poor animals.
Yeah.
Just to prove their point.
Yes, I guess so.
Prove a lie.
Yeah. Cool. Well, we're moving on here. So that was good on you for mentioning the Canadian Drug Policy Coalition, drugpolicy.ca. Check them out. I'm sure we'll see a lot of good stuff from them as well. So we did talk a little bit before, obviously, about Stephen Harper and the Conservatives winning the majority government and being able to do whatever they want for the most part. But we still do have an official opposition party here in this country. And this year, it changed from being the Liberal Party of Canada to being the New Democratic Party of Canada, which is a much more progressive party, or at least used to be much more progressive, until it changed. And now the Liberals seem really progressive. And what happened to the NDP? No, I'm just joking. I know that the NDP is probably still more liberal in many ways, or more progressive. I'm sure their economic policies are probably a lot different than the liberal, neoliberal, which are very similar to conservative type policies. But I'm an NDPer. I've been a member of the NDP for many years now and campaigned for several members of Parliament and members of the Legislative Assembly. And this year, here in British Columbia, Dana Larson ran for the leadership of the BC NDP, and he did a great job, actually. He didn't win, so it wasn't quite the success he wanted, but I mean, really, when you're running a candidate like Dana was, getting all this positive media attention that he ended up getting in the end. In the beginning, it wasn't so easy for him, but by the end, they were eaten out of the palm of his hand, and so were the other members of the NDP who were running against him. It was a big love fest for the most part, which was great because there were a few problems, a few speed bumps with Dana and the NDP before that in the previous year. Going to the convention.
Yeah, being unable to take out advertisements.
In the convention booklet. Yeah, he was banned. They were banned from the convention. And Dana's group, End Prohibition, they are fantastic. endprohibition.ca. And the NDP and End, they used to write it with ENDPRO, so on and so forth. So the NDP was big in End Prohibition.
I designed their original website.
They got rid of that little gimmicky thing.
Yeah, they changed it. They changed
did.
it when Jacob came and took over, I believe.
Right.
So
went straight.
They needed it. I'm only an amateur webmaster. I can do stuff, but I haven't actually gone into hardcore creation. But I did do the back end of Cannabis Culture for about 2 years. More or less on my own. Yeah. I can blame Carlos for any problems that we had from the design.
No, Cannabis Culture.
Sorry,
is fine.
but I have to pass the buck there.
Sorry. Yes. Well, that's cool, Marius. Yeah, Marius, you have old school stories. You've been here for a long time, or you were here before and then you came back.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah,
I had to set out on my own to find out what I was capable of. Mark was very generous to me. It was my first job after not having worked for a while, and then I was laid off around the same time that he got arrested. But at the time I was kind of unsatisfied with my job, so I had to move on. But I decided to come back because deep down inside I'm an activist and I need to be around other activists to be happy, I find. The people out there that I worked with in 3D animation were great people, but they just didn't have the same, I don't know, something about them that was missing. So, sorry to say.
Well, it's good to be passionate about your job. do something that you
It's
like
good to be
do.
back.
Yeah, that's cool. It's good to have you back, Larry.
Oh, thanks.
So we were talking about
That's the whole
Dana.
team. Just so you guys know, this is it. This is Cannabis
Culture.
Culture.
We're Cannabis Culture.
That's everybody.
And we have a fine
Mark
writers.
is part of the team too. He's our leader in exile.
That's right. And there's lots of contributors to Cannabis Culture as well. Couldn't do it without them. But
lots
yeah,
of supporters.
And tons of support and viewers like you. I should be on PBS. All right, so Dana and the NDP. So I didn't mention that, of course, with Jack Layton last year. It was such a sad thing. This year, sorry, we're still in this year. It's 2012. 2011, yes, Jack passed away, which was really sad for me because it seemed very hopeful for that brief period when that 1 month of the election that we have in Canada. We have such short election periods here in Canada. You know, I see why they do that for some reason. I understand bits of it, but 1 month? I mean, I wouldn't want a year-long election like they have in the United States. So, actually, it goes longer. It seems like they're always campaigning. But here in Canada, I don't know about a month. It doesn't seem like a lot. It's not really enough for people to really even know that an election is going on unless you're paying attention. And most people don't. 80% of the population doesn't really watch the news or even read the newspaper very much. So, I don't know. I think mandatory voting. That's what I want. That's right. Hold a gun to their head. You have to. I'm just kidding. But no, I really do. I've been thinking about mandatory voting. If it's mandatory census, which serves a legitimate purpose, and I agree with that. No, now it's not. Yeah, because of these conservatives. But I agree with that.
Jack Layton. Who is Jack Layton? People are
Call me a pinko crazy socialist, but I mean, if you had a mandatory vote, you could go if you didn't like it and cross it off and just write nothing on it or something. But at least you'd be taking part in things. Yeah.
Possibly. I don't like the idea of like the state having the power to arrest you if you don't vote or fine you or whatever. Because if it's mandatory, obviously they have the right to do something. Otherwise, so I don't like that idea about campaigning.
The census, they don't really arrest you. They just harass you until you do it.
Harass you.
And they have very good results with that census.
I suppose
they come to the door and
that doesn't really work. That doesn't really work as far as voting goes.
Well, you can send the voting people
after the vote day. Then hang on, we have to find out what all these people who haven't voted yet voting for before we can elect our leader.
Oh yeah, I guess you're right. Well, there could be a voting period.
Yeah, you haven't slept for them.
Yeah, that's true.
But one thing I do like about the American,
these are great ideas.
The American system is the idea to vote on issues, whereas we don't have that in Canada. Once we elect our leaders, we've signed off, and they can do whatever the heck they want until next voting time.
Yeah.
And we don't have
with the majority government.
Yeah, that's with our old British parliamentary system. That's the way it works.
Yeah, even the British system, I don't think is as bad as ours now. They've actually moved on and changed things. But
I think you're right.
Ours is savage.
Yeah, ours is more of a throwback. Though we do have the Declaration of Rights and Freedoms.
That's right.
Trudeau put in, which I think that has been changing us for the better.
Yeah. No, I'm all for that for sure.
Which brings sort of us to Chris Bennett.
Yes.
Who used that.
That's right.
So I know it's a little out of order, but
that is a little out of order, but that's not so bad. We can jump to that. But before we do, see, I still wanted to play this video of Dana because I really like this video.
Right. We're still there.
We're still on the NDP. We'll go to Chris next. I noticed that somebody in the chat mentioned Chris, and we are going to talk about Mr. Chris Bennett and his religious cannabis case, and it's on my list.
Yeah.
But I want to play you guys this video of Dana because I thought it was cute, and I love Dana, and I thought it was just great. It's more than 10 minutes, just over 10 minutes here. But it's actually pretty cool, and Dana sort of goes through and explains things. And if you're really bored of it or something, I don't think you will be. Dana's fantastic. His speeches are great. He really was shining in this campaigning that he did, I thought. And he was doing a lot of stuff just off the cuff, and he was on point. So on point. Dana, he's a communication master. And he's a good guy.
Yeah, well, I've known him for a while, and his heart is devoted to legalizing cannabis, and he enjoys talking about it, and he's been doing it for years and years, and he keeps himself up to date. So talking about him is like getting it from a pure source.
Right. And for those who don't know, I don't think I really set Dana up at the beginning of when we started talking about him, but he is the former founding editor of Cannabis Culture magazine, or co-founder with Mark. And so he worked on the magazine for many, many years, and it was his baby. And Dana did a great job. His writing is fantastic, and he still does great writing. In fact, he had something published in Cannabis Culture and in the Vancouver Sun simultaneously not so long ago about the Cannabis Cup in Amsterdam, which is a great article, which you can find on Cannabis Culture. But here's a video of Dana. Check it out. We love him.
Thank you very much for holding this event and for having us here and giving us all a chance to introduce ourselves and explain who we are and what we stand for. So my name is Dana Larson. Over my life, I've been a journalist, a community organizer, small business owner, and these days I'm the director and manager of a nonprofit society that serves about 3,000 patients across the Lower Mainland with cannabis medicines. And I'm here today because I'm idealistic, because I'm passionate about our party and the future of our province, and because I believe that I'm bringing forward a set of policies and priorities which will resonate with the members of our party and with the people of British Columbia. I'm basing my campaign upon 4 pillars. That's democracy, sustainability, social justice, and being smart on crime. When it comes to democracy, I'd like to start within our own party and make sure that the grassroots members of our party are empowered to have ongoing policy debates and help shape the priorities and policies of our party on an ongoing basis, and not simply every 2 years at a delegated convention. Further, as Premier, I would remember that it was the NDP that brought in our current direct democracy referendum system in 1996. And yet in all that time, we're only going to ever have had 1 vote, and that's on the HST. So I would lower the threshold to make it easier for the people of our province to have a direct vote and get items on the ballot when they need to. For sustainability, I would make sure that Sustainable BC was at the forefront of our next election campaign, and that the policies and priorities of that document were given high relevance and used as a lens to determine all other policies. And as Premier, I would put the policies of Sustainable BC into practice. And one good thing I would do is to work to remove the fare boxes from our SkyTrain and from our public transit systems across the province. Too often, the fare boxes simply act as a barrier to access, and I would like to maximize the amount of people that are riding public transit in our province. In terms of social justice, I think we need to look at the way we have our tax system and do some reform. As Premier, I would roll back all of the Liberal tax cuts from 2001, which would not coincidentally pretty much fill our current budget deficit right there. Further, I would add a new top tax bracket for the top 0.6% of earners in our province. Those earning more than $250,000 a year would see their marginal tax rate on income over that amount increase by 11%. Doing these 2 things would completely fill our budget deficit and leave $500 million left over, which I would invest that surplus into our education system. Finally, we come to being smart on crime. And I do not believe that the prison is a solution for homelessness, for drug addiction, or for mental health issues. And I believe that we need a Premier and an Attorney General that will stand up to the federal government, stand up to Harper's expensive prison spending spree, for which the province of British Columbia will be footing the bill. And I believe that prison is not the solution for these issues, and that we also need to recognize that marijuana users are not criminals. And as a Premier, a first step I would take would be to regulate and to control our current system of dispensaries and growers. I would legislate them to bring them above board and to legitimize that industry and to ensure that we have community safety and safety for the patients that need this important medicine. I believe that to win elections, our party needs to have a boldness of vision and to speak strongly what we stand for, to be proudly socialist, and to motivate those voters who don't come out and vote, to give them a positive vision for our province. And that is what I'm trying to do with my campaign, and that is what I would do as our party leader. Thank you very much. You raise a very key issue, and you know, whether it's BC Rail or BC Ferries or BC Hydro or any of these things, it's just part of the Liberal philosophy, which is really a neoconservative philosophy of handing over the common good to corporate interests. And when they can't sell it off, they purposely mismanage it, like our healthcare system and our education system. These aren't mistakes that they're making. This is a purposeful plan. It's part of the shock doctrine ideology. Make stuff not work, and then you can go, oh, it doesn't work properly. We got to privatize it. The private's got to take over. The only way to do it is like big corporations run it. And that is a very dangerous philosophy which is becoming far too entrenched in our society and in our government. And as Premier, I would do everything I could. You know, when Gordon Campbell came in, he was tearing up contracts that he didn't like. And I believe that our government should be doing the same thing with any contracts. We should do everything in our power, use the full power of our legislature and the Premier's office to bring BC Hydro, BC Ferries, BC Rail, and other examples back to be crown corporations that are fully responsible and fully accountable and fully owned by the people of this province. And we can do that if we have the courage and the desire to stand up and take that political risk, and it will pay off for the people of our province, and it will pay off for our party. Thank you. Well, you know, forestry is a key issue, and it's an example of how we're not using the resources in our province for the maximum benefit of the people of our province. We're using them for the financial benefit of corporations whose roots are not in this province. The money doesn't stay in this province, and the resources end up being used in a way that do not benefit the people who really should be managing them. And I strongly believe in a local community control over resources as much as possible within the context of our system. So I believe that local communities should have more control over their water and more control over how we deal with the forestry issues as well. And we have to make sure that we're not just using our resources as fast as possible for the quickest possible buck and shipping them off in a really short-term way. I think we need to look at making sure we have sustainable systems that last for many generations, and that we're making a buck that lasts a long time and not a buck that just comes and goes instantly. And so, as Premier, I would try to use tax incentives. I would try to use legislation to ensure that we keep our logs in our own mills, that we do as much work as possible within our province, and that we're not just shifting off our resources to be dealt with elsewhere. Thank you. I absolutely agree that we face a challenge on the left in dealing with the corporate media. And we're living in a time of increased concentration of media monopoly and control. And a lot of these big media corporations are not our friends. And it's true, they will do everything they can to make us look bad and to make the corporate elite look like a bunch of good guys. And we have to deal with that issue. We have to really work to bypass the media in some ways as well. And we talked a bit about the internet, about Facebook and social media. And those are certainly a key thing. They're free. And I believe our party could do a better job on Facebook and on social media than we're doing already. But we also have to be the party of the grassroots. You know, that's what we are. We are the party of the people, and the Liberals are the party of the corporate elite. And so we have to turn to the people to make sure that we can get our message out. And that means going to where activists already are, going to groups that care about social change, going to the rallies, going to these groups and getting them to understand that they belong in us and that they belong as part of the NDP. And if we can bring in the grassroots people that are fighting these issues that may not already be party members, we will increase the strength of our party, we will increase the size of our tent, and we'll be able to win elections. And I think we also have to turn to our union brothers and sisters as well. There's a lot of organizing skill there that sometimes we neglect to take full advantage of in our party. And I think there's a lot of talent and a lot of ability within the union base that we can rely on to people who understand how to organize, who understand how to make social change, and get them to make sure they're working hard for our party. And you know what's happening in Wisconsin right now? It wasn't a creation of the media. It wasn't because newspapers said, hey, we got to go have a rally. It's people power. People and unions and individuals getting out there and making a difference and making their voice heard. And we can and should be doing the same thing in the NDP. We are the party of the people, and our only way of succeeding is to have people power and to show the people of this province that we represent them and that their ideals and that they belong in our party. Thank you. I strongly believe that access to clean water is a human right. And, you know, the Constitution of British Columbia is actually open to legislative change. And I think it might be something worth looking at as Premier to see if we can entrench some things like access to clean water and clean air as human rights in British Columbia. So it will be difficult for future governments to take those things away from people. And, you know, our water supply is under a lot of threats in this province, not only from bulk water exports and from corporations that would rather having us drinking Dasani than tap water, but also our water supply is under threat from industry and also from things like pharmaceutical drugs and antibiotics that end up in our water supply. And these are things that are not tested for or monitored in any kind of way. And I think it's important to really know what's in our drinking water and make sure that we have clean and safe water for everybody. And there's too many communities in this province that don't have safe water, and that should be a top priority, making sure that every single person in this province has access to clean water when needed. And as part of that, I would make sure that our big cities have drinking fountains readily available. People in downtown of Vancouver are suffering from thirst and not able to access water. They turn off a lot of the fountains in the city quite often. And I believe that everyone should have access to water when they need it. And, you know, when it comes to our heritage funding and our arts community, If we don't know where we've been as a society, then we're not going to know where we're going. And I think it's important that we preserve our heritage, that we let our children and our grandchildren be aware of where this province has come from, and that we don't try to only have what I think the Liberals and neoconservatives would like, which is a corporate culture. And in preserving arts and preserving heritage, make sure that local communities have a vibrant local culture, and that's what community is all about. Thank you. Economy versus the environment. I think we have to understand that what we call the economy is not really what the economy is. And we use poor measures to judge economic success in this province and really around the world. And the idea that the economy is good when there's a lot of transactions going on, it's more complicated than that. You know, in any system that says that an oil spill or that somebody getting cancer is good for the economy is clearly the wrong way to measure the economy. And there's other measures out there. And so as Premier, I would ensure that we weren't treating our environment as an externality, something that gets written off the books. I'd make sure that we use an economic measure that measured happiness, that measured health, and that measured key factors of what makes human beings happy, satisfied human beings. And I think that we also need to understand that a strong economy comes from the grassroots up. We don't need to have the lowest tax rate in the world in order to get corporate interest. We need to build an economy that is based on the grassroots of local communities. And I believe local communities are the best stewards for their resources, and that local communities will make choices that benefit the long term and the long benefit and won't just look for the short term, unlike international corporations that have little interest in our province other than extracting the most money they can in the shortest period of time. I think we also need to recognize that many of our resources get more valuable over time. There's no need and no rush to sell these things off right away. The longer they stay in the ground, the longer they're there, they actually in many cases become more valuable as the rest of the world starts to run out of these things. And finally, I would withdraw some trade agreements like TILMA, which is now the Western Canada Partnership Agreement. I think that we need a province that can make our own policies here and not have a system where corporations can sue us and force us to the lowest common denominator within British Columbia. I think our government has to be the one that makes those choices, and an NDP government will make the right choices, I sure hope. Thank you very much. So there's a lot that we can do in British Columbia to make our economy work better and to make sure that we keep our financial house in order. And there's this terrible myth and lie from the right wing that they are the natural governors of the economy and they know how to manage money best. That we've seen in America with George Bush, we've seen federally with our Harper administration, and provincially with the Campbell Liberals, that they purposefully mismanage our economy. They leave us in great debt. They shovel money to their corporate friends or in the federal government to military as well, and don't seem to care very much about the people and about the mess they leave behind. And I think that this is part of a purposeful mismanagement, like I mentioned before, of our healthcare system, of our education system, and of our economy itself. And so we need to make some changes. And I talked about rolling back all the corporate tax cuts the Liberals brought into place. And I've talked about adding a new top tax bracket for the top 0.6% of earners. And doing those two things would at least eliminate our deficit and give us an extra $500 million that we could play with. But we also need to look at where we're spending money. And one thing I think we're going to be spending a lot of money on in this province is prisons. And although this is a federal law, this is going to be paid for by the provinces. And we need to look at our policing budgets in this province and our prison budgets in this province. And policing is something that has been going up steadily, both provincially and in municipalities. And it's a cost that we could get under control if we realize that police are not social workers, if police are not the right ones to deal with many of the things that we're shoving at them. Not only are they not the right ones, they're not trained for it, they're the most expensive solution. I think we need to recognize that homelessness costs more to leave somebody homeless on the street than it does to help them. It costs more to mismanage our healthcare system. A lot of these are false economies that we think it's going to help us in the short term, at least that's the argument, but in reality we're all paying for it in the long run. So we need to do a lot of reforming. We need to stop giving away our resources and our economy to multinational corporations, make sure they benefit people at the grassroots. We also need to look at our healthcare system, which has got a rapidly increasing costs. And one of the greatest rapidly increasing costs in our healthcare system is pharmaceutical drugs. We need to look at how we deal with patents. We need to look at how we deal with the pharmaceutical drug industry in British Columbia and make sure that we're not paying more than we have to for these substances, and also make sure that we offer other real alternatives as well. And finally, I would say that we need to eliminate P3s and other things like that. Make sure that we don't continue this neoconservative destruction of our government and of the common good, and that we understand that proper planning and proper maintenance of these socialized programs will benefit the economy, will benefit the people of the province for this generation and those to come. Thank you.
So that was Dana. That goes on for a little bit longer, but I thought that was a cool clip. The first 10 minutes were really good. But yeah, Dana's fantastic. He always is right on point with stuff, and he did such a great job the last time around. I hope that he continues to do this, and I'm sure you'll be. Well, one day Dana will be an MLA or an MP or something. Prime Minister Dana Larson.
I wouldn't be surprised.
I wouldn't be surprised.
I hope he does too.
Yeah.
Definitely. He's a good man.
Well, and Adrian Dix seemed to like him and mentioned him after the entire campaign was done, or I think in his acceptance speech he actually mentioned it by name. And everybody was kind of proud of him afterwards because I think in the beginning nobody was taking him seriously because of the shenanigans that happened before in the media with them, you know, playing the old Pot TV clips and so on and so forth. The last time around when there was a federal campaign going on. But yeah, it was cool. So there's more links. All these links, all the videos, everything that we've been playing, you can find in the article on the front page of Cannabis Culture. Cannabis in Canada, the most important marijuana stories of 2011. And moving on to the next important story, we did talk about the medical marijuana program earlier when we were talking about Mr. Matt Murnau. Now, after the court case happened, the federal government did come back with new regulations, and they were kind of leaked out at first, and then they came out with their recommendations or their improvements. I use quotation marks whenever I say that word. Because we don't think they are improvements. We think they, you know, we're glad that they're recognizing that it's broken, that the medical marijuana program doesn't work properly, but the changes they are proposing are not going to make it any better. It's going to make it worse. And some of those changes, you can find these in that article, eliminating personal production licenses and ending legal personal home marijuana grows altogether. I mean, that alone.
Yeah, good luck with that too.
Yeah, I mean, how, I just don't understand how they think they're going to be able to get away with that. The court will come back and say no.
And people who have like spent their lives growing marijuana because they're looking for their personal medicine, you know, they're supposed to ignore all that work and just throw it away and give it to some flim-flam operation again? Yeah. I don't think so.
No. No, it doesn't make sense. And there's a bunch of other problems. They want to eliminate the actual cards. They've already started to eliminate those cards. They've only been sending out the actual pieces of paper. The cards are disappearing. And what else here?
They want to, like you said, create private organizations that will sell to us.
That's right.
And
the government wants Health Canada to get out of the business completely. Yeah. Which, you know, I don't necessarily think that's a bad idea. There could be models that would work.
Well, certainly, yeah. Certainly
our conservative government's idea of privatization, you know, we know what that is. It's not good, really. It's just handing it over to some private corporation or something. But
yeah,
hopefully
they'll try to control it in some way, for certain.
Well, look what we have in Canada now, with Health Canada being part of it and having one company, Prairie Plant Systems, who does it in Manitoba, or who did it. I'm not really sure if they're still going. I guess we should probably find out about that.
I never heard of it actually shutting down, but we should check it out for
sure.
Yeah,
I know that they must be getting worried, or maybe they'll be part of the whole government scheme once it all gets turned privatized. Maybe they want more of that type of thing. More brown, shitty weed.
Yeah, well, something that won't compete with the pharmaceuticals.
Right.
For sure.
Exactly. Weed that doesn't work, bunk. So, yeah, these changes, they do have them proposed. They did do a period where they were asking the public for information, some sort of consultation period. And they did meet, actually, with a lot of different groups, including CAMCD, who we talked about earlier, and some of our friends around here. I think even maybe Kirk Tusaw. And yeah, so maybe they will take what they had to say into consideration. I hope so, but I wouldn't hold my breath.
Well, with the Conservatives and power writing the laws, I won't expect anything positive, honestly.
Exactly. So okay, we did talk about Chris Benn a little bit earlier, and
that's right. We both went into the court case. It was an appeal of the. What is the man's position?
Well, basically, Chris is part of the Church of the Universe, and Chris believes, like many other people in Canada believe, that marijuana is the tree of life as described in the Bible and other religious sacred texts.
Yeah, and he's written several books on the subject.
Yeah, he's written 3 books on the subject of marijuana and religion. And he wasn't arrested. He wasn't charged with anything. Like some of the other people who have taken or used the religious defense in court before and been unsuccessful. There were a pair of reverends from the Church of the Universe at the beginning of the year that happened to here. It's actually in the article. There's a link. But Chris took it upon himself and all the costs associated with it to actually start a charter challenge. So what he did first of all is he sent a request to the Minister of Health, I believe it was, for an exemption.
That's right. It was the minister's decision that he was
That's right.
Appealing because the minister denied him.
The minister denied him an exemption he wanted to use marijuana for religious purposes, legally. And he believes marijuana is a sacrament, and when he smokes it, it's a way of him getting in touch with his God, whatever that may be.
And so does the Church of the Universe.
Right.
But he was seeking a strictly personal exemption.
That's right. And so the minister, without really looking into it, just said no. Didn't really take any of his books into consideration, and the materials that he submitted with it, which were fairly extensive. And so it was pretty sad. What's going on, Jody?
There's this story that Kelly Clarkson albums skyrocketed 442%, making her number 7 on Amazon's sale list from number 38 because she endorsed Ron Paul. It's on CNN. Money.
Wow, celebrities, you hear that?
Gives her money.
Celebrities need to jump on the Ron Paul bandwagon and make everybody rich. Those Paul fans are really rabid. They just, Kelly, give me the Kelly Clarkson. I love her now. Yeah.
Sorry for the interruption.
No. I was going to mention that story because it is funny that Kelly Clarkson, isn't she from American Idol or something? Or what is she from? Didn't she start on some reality show?
She was the very first American Idol girl.
Right. I really honestly don't know. I've never even really watched that show.
I haven't either, but that's what it says in here.
So, yeah, you know what? It's getting late. It's already 5:30. I want to talk about Ron Paul. So let's just wrap it up really quickly about Chris here.
Yeah.
So Chris went to court. Both Marius and I were there, and it was shocking actually because what Chris wanted after the minister had denied him, he basically said, "No, you have to give it to me, and I'm taking you to court for it." And so
it was an appeal.
It's like an appeal. The official name is what do they call it? Oh, I shouldn't do that because I never can find it when I look for it. A judicial review.
Judicial review.
A judicial review. And an order to compel the issuing of an exemption.
If he wants to, so.
Right. That's the jargon. But yeah, so the court case itself was bizarre because of one very strange judge, Judge Michael Shore, the Honorable Michael Shore, and who actually has written several books about religion and supposedly had some knowledge of Chris's position. He said he had read everything. He alluded to the fact that he had read Chris's books, but it quickly became evident that he really hadn't, and he was just starting to get really weird and saying strange things, and actually like getting stuck in these weird logical loops of like, I don't know what he was really on. Like I thought he was on mushrooms the whole time. I don't know, it would have made more sense. It didn't make sense what he was saying. The words that were coming out of his mouth had no meaning. Well, I've never seen a judge ever do anything like that before.
I did understand what he was trying to say personally. Like it was like he was a philosophy professor pontificating in front of a fireplace after a lecture. But it just on and on. It certainly did not.
There was no linear path.
Right. And ironically, he seemed to agree with what Chris Bennett had to say. And however, in the end, he said, "Well, I'm going to judge because of what the present lawgivers say, and obviously our present lawgivers are the conservatives who hate marijuana and want to keep it illegal," and he ruled with them.
Yeah, and if you want to read a more detailed account of the entire thing, it's on Cannabis Culture. It's on that front page. Just go check the link out. But yeah, it was very strange. There's a couple articles about it because when he came back, he issued his ruling, and you can read the whole ruling. It's kind of strange as well. There's some of that weird circular logic, and actually I just felt that some of it wasn't following. And I understand philosophy. I've been in many philosophy classes, and I had some great philosophy instructors, and of course there's always people in philosophy class who act very much like that and go off on these things. But he seemed even more reaching. Like he didn't make it, just wasn't following it. One thing didn't lead to the next, and it was very strange. So
yeah, like he's been in his ivory tower a decade or two too long.
Must be. I'm not really sure. But still think it was mushrooms. But
we can only guess.
So that was interesting. But poor Chris, unfortunately, wasn't so interesting for him.
Yeah, because he's stuck with all the legal costs.
Right. And the judge, when he came back to be an extra dick, said that Chris will be responsible for paying for all of it if he loses the appeal, because Chris is going to appeal.
He's going to appeal. Well, that's very brave of him.
Or I think he's going to appeal. He said, I think I have him quoted as saying that he's going to appeal. So, but maybe not. Maybe he's thinking twice about it because it's very expensive. And
yeah, and if the odds are against him, what more can be gained if you know that you're going to lose?
Well, exactly.
But of course, it's up to him. It's very courageous of him to do that. Very generous of him to do that. Not just for himself, but for all cannabis people in Canada and around the world. So.
Yeah.
Good for you, Chris. Keep up the good fight.
Yeah, thanks for doing it for us, man. So, on to the next one here. I'm going to put the last two together because they're pretty much matched up. The first one was the crackdown on cannabis users continues, and the second one was conservative majority in Bill C-10. It's all related. So the conservatives who have been ramping up efforts throughout the country, there could be a number of reasons for this. That's not just necessarily for the conservatives to blame, but I like to blame them anyway. And if we look at the stats, some stats that came out in July of 2011, they said over 58,000 Canadians were arrested in 2010 for marijuana possession. That's up a huge 14% over the previous year. So they're increasing the numbers of people arrested by 14% in 1 year. That works out to over 54% of all drug arrests in the country were for marijuana possession.
Well, there go our Canadian tax dollars persecuting completely innocent people, taking up legal time, court time, police time that could be used to solve real crimes. It's disgusting.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
Yeah, it's bizarre. We live in a bizarro world. So that came out, but there, of course, other things happened this year. There were a few medical marijuana dispensaries who were raided by the RCMP here in Vancouver. There were several of them, multiples, and there were arrests made, and there's ongoing court cases still happening. And it's kind of inexplicable in a way. I guess there was some complaints. That's what the cops always say. Nobody's really sure why they chose to move forward on so many at the same time like that. I mean, they haven't done that for how many years? 10, 15 years? And then all of a sudden it all happens at once. It does seem like it's some sort of coordinated effort to me. Maybe that's just speculation. But I mean, that's a pretty big coincidence. But you never know. Who knows? And of course, we have the RCMP here in Canada is like a standing army. And it is controlled by the federal government. It's not controlled by a local government. Here,
it's a military body.
Right. And if you notice, in Vancouver, there were no dispensaries raided. We have the VPD, and they didn't do any raiding. It was all RCMP jurisdictions that were raided.
That's right, and I think that explains a lot of it. The RCMP is controlled by the federal government, and the federal government is controlled by our #1 man, Stephen Harper.
That's right. He's our man. I thought you were going to say the lizard people.
The lizard people. Well, he represents the lizard people.
Right. We should have David Icke on the show. I don't really know a lot about him. I just know a little bit about the lizard people. I'm sure he's a good guy too.
Well,
I've heard good and bad.
In the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, there was a planet that was ruled entirely by lizards, and they say, well, what if you stopped voting for Canada? It goes, and the wrong lizard would get in.
Well, that makes sense.
Absolutely.
That's, I think, exactly where we're at.
Pretty much. Yeah, the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is a very satirical look at our society.
Yeah, you like that one a lot.
Yeah,
I've never actually read it. But, okay, well, and so, of course, Bill C-10, that's the biggest story of the whole year, pretty much, for the pot community. They passed now, the House of Commons has passed a really nasty omnibus, because it has 9 old bills in it. They call it an omnibus bill. And it's guaranteed, if it is passed by the Senate and becomes law, to cost us billions of dollars, put a bunch of non-violent, innocent people in jail who haven't really hurt anybody. And it will actually make crime worse. It will actually, they call it the Safe Streets and Communities Act, but the irony is so deep because it will actually harm us and make us less safe.
Yeah, this is a 1984 type bill, you know, in which innocent people will be thrown in jail. Crime rates have been going down in Canada, and yet he wants to build more prisons.
Mandatory minimum sentences for growing as few as 6 plants of 6 months in jail. That's insane. And really, it just makes me think like, and we've been seeing a lot of the police unions or groups of police come out and say, well, it has to be a balance, it has to be a balance, because they're even afraid. Even the cops themselves, they're like, oh God, this is going to be insane. You know, how can they round people up who are doing this? Because a lot of people smoke pot. I'm sorry, but, you know.
Well, one of the reasons why we have the tolerant atmosphere in Vancouver is because the possession cases were clogging up the courts.
Yes.
This has happened. We've been through that, and you know, one of the consequences is the police more or less ignore people who are smoking pot, and if they go after anybody, it's growers or people who are selling on the street.
Yeah. No, it's very true. But Stephen Harper and these guys don't listen to science. They don't care about the facts. They don't govern by statistics, is the way they say it, which means they don't govern by facts. They just govern by, what are they governing by exactly? That's what I'd like to know.
They're governing for profit.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Style prisons and whatnot.
That's right. Yeah, it's a shocking bill, and of course there are still ways we can stop this. There's still ways to fight. It's looking pretty grim because, of course, with the majority government, they can throw anything through the House they want, and they have the Senate in their pocket as well. They're all conservative senators, have the majority there as well. So, and of course, there's a lot of liberals there who just roll over on those things anyway in the Senate. But still, we need to continue to contact the Senate, contact local branches of government like the provincial governments here who actually can stand up to the federal government, because a lot of this money that's going to have to come up, somebody's going to have to cough it up for the prisons and for the maintenance of all these things.
That's right.
And
Several provinces have refused to pay for it already. British Columbia, not yet.
No, Christy Clark says, oh, well, it's going to be expensive, but I understand. We need to get tough on crime. Christy, so sad, so sad.
But yeah, there's still a chance to, even though the bill will get passed, to make it lose its teeth.
That's right. And of course, the more the provincial governments complain, the more the federal government is going to have to do something about it. If they all band together and complain, I mean, they can leverage their power in that way, right? So there's still things we can do. It's not over yet. And as we were talking about before, I think the cops are just going to be like, no, they're just going to not do it. They're not going to enforce it that hard.
Well, the RCMP, I'm sure, will do their best, but local police forces, city police forces, I'm sure will have second thoughts.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think there's a name even for a phenomenon that happens when the laws become harsher for a lesser crime. The police on the ground themselves actually have the ability, they get to choose whether they arrest somebody or not. It's
discretion.
Up to them. They have discretion. And so they will often think it's a psychological thing, like, I don't want this person to have to go to jail for this minimal thing. And that does happen. There's studies that go into this where sometimes there's this weird gap thing that happens in between when a law is harsher. And that's one of David Malcolm Levine's criticisms of decriminalization, because he says if you make it a fine, then the police officer is much more likely to give you the fine than actually give you something that he thinks will lead to jail time. A lot of times they'll just let you go. So it all comes down to enforcement in the end. But that's the end of the list. Check it out. We just explained the whole thing, so you probably don't need to check it out anymore. But
there's a lot of details. Jeremiah did an excellent job putting this article together.
Yeah, there's a ton of links. I'm still going since last night, so... All right. And the other thing I was doing last night for a really big chunk of the night actually was reading about Ron Paul, reading every article I could find about him and sending very many of them to Mark so he would be equally happy, pissed off, and get him all riled up. Because the media right now is just being savage to Ron Paul. The vast majority of the stories that are, when you search Google News, are negative stories. And Google is pissing me off too, because when you put Ron Paul in, there's these racist quotes that come up because they were written under Ron Paul's name and he's disavowed them. But those quotes keep coming up at the top of Google under his name and with no clarification that he has disavowed them for 20 years.
And
Oh,
and of course,
yeah.
when the mainstream media and the Republican establishment and the Democratic establishment and all the partisan people who are fighters on either side hate somebody as much as they all hate Ron Paul, and the prison industrial complex hates him too, and the military industrial complex hates him too, and the war industry and the oil industry and all the bad in the world hates Ron Paul. So that's got to tell you something.
Must be doing something right.
I'm just gonna say that. So
yeah, it's very true. It's very, and that's why they're attacking him so savagely. Is because they're getting nervous. He threatens everything that they represent and everything they have been fighting for all this time. And somebody like Ron Paul could walk in there and just upset it like that.
First they ignore you, and then they laugh at you, and then they attack you. And then you get up and you support him in Iowa and every other U.S. state, and then he wins!
Yeah.
And then Mark and all the other drug prisoners will be pardoned, and the DEA will be dismantled and defunded, and hemp will be legal across America, and medical marijuana will be respected in every state that that's brought into, and the Patriot Act will end, and the illegal detention of Americans will end, and the execution of Americans abroad will end. There's so many reasons to vote and support for Ron Paul. Please, please, please do it, because tell me who's better. Tell me who's better. And sure, if you think he's evil and you think, oh well, I don't want to vote for the lesser of all evils, then why wouldn't you? That doesn't make any sense. He's the least evil, and if you know it's going to be evil by not voting for the least evil, you're giving it free to the most evil. So get out there and vote for the least evil.
It's like the lizards. We were just talking about right. Yeah.
Do not want the wrong lizard to get in.
No, you don't want the wrong lizard to get in, so you have to vote for one of them.
For sure, Ron Paul's the choice. Ron Paul is the choice. He is.
And I think Ron Paul is actually a decent human being as well. Whereas most of these people aren't.
You can tell that's the truth. And
some of the stuff about the racism and the homophobic stuff in those old newsletters does, it grates at me a bit.
It makes people's eyebrows go, huh?
Yeah.
But tell me this, as Mark said, if you were the publisher of the New York Times or somebody's report, the Drudge Report, I don't know.
Right.
And you posted editorials that were anonymous, that were entered into that newsletter or publication, would you be held responsible later on when running for president for having allowed the publication of things without making sure it...
Probably. You probably should be in a way. I understand the point.
But these newsletters represent different people's points of view, and that was someone else.
Written under, they said
under his name.
Or whatever, right?
Yeah, well, this is Mark Henry's Cannabis Culture headquarters, and everything we do has his name on it.
Well,
he doesn't
that's
agree
true.
with everything I say or everyone else says. We allow socialists in this building.
No, but it wasn't just that it was, Jody, it wasn't just that his name was on the magazine, like Ron Paul Magazine or something. It was like, it actually said that it was signed by Ron Paul. And so that's where he said it was ghostwritten. And we think,
either way,
there's articles about it. It was probably Lou Rockwell. And the reason they did it, there's a reason they did it, and it's because they were trying to appeal to paleo conservatives who are like that.
And at the time, there was a lot going on, and people use hot, heated language. We all do.
Right. It's politics in a big way. And, it's weird because all the other Republican candidates are so fucking racist.
So racist.
Every single one of them is really a racist.
They're racist in their words and their actions. Yeah. Ron Paul is, if you want to say he's racist in his words, you will never find a video or written word or spoken word or interview or anything of Ron Paul actually saying something like that. And the actions that Ron Paul takes are absolutely anti-racist. The biggest form of racism going on in America today is the racist drug war that puts 1 in 9 black Americans behind bars, and that's going on every single day and expanded and continued under Obama and every president. And Ron Paul is the only one who would end modern-day slavery, because that's what it is.
Yeah.
You've got the majority of prisoners are black Americans being forced to work for pennies a day for war corporations making helmets and vests and military gear. That's what prisoners are paid to do. And they have to have a job of one kind or another, or they get in trouble. So they're forced to work for the war machine. It's a big freaking racist policy, and only Ron Paul is against it. So I'm serious. I get passionate here. I see these families. I see these people behind bars for the drug war and their little kids, and it's insane. And that's the biggest tragedy going on in the U.S. today, even though there's a lot of other bad things happening too. Ron Paul is the only one who's campaigning against that, so he deserves your vote.
I think you have to judge a man by what he says, not what somebody else wrote, and you will not find any clips. In fact, the clips of Ron Paul are saying that he admires Martin Luther King. He's the only one who voted in Texas to recognize Martin Luther King Day. Nobody else has done that, and people like Newt Gingrich and those assholes voted against it. John McCain himself voted against recognizing Martin Luther King Day. Like, what an
Ron
ass.
Paul's actions are good because he advocates the, saving all poor and middle class Americans and minorities of all types from the Wall Street bailouts and all the corporate.
And I'm going to play a clip right now. This is Ron Paul actually speaking to a group of normal people from the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws, that is, not just they're normal. But yeah, this is great because he speaks directly to the issue we're talking about. He talks about the racist roots of the drug war. And I find it very hard to believe that the guy is racist if he's railing against racist policies and calling them out for being racist. It just doesn't really make a lot of sense. So check this out.
What was so bad about the period from 1776 to 1914? Well, the doctors complained a little bit because it was in the 20th century. The doctors, like all business people, decided that there ought to be a monopoly. That if you wanted a little bit of codeine in your cough medicine, it would be much better if you come to me so I can charge you $25 for a prescription, and then you can decide whether or not you need codeine in your cough syrup because, of course, that's good for business, good for the doctor. So this is what happened. Before the 20th century, there was none of that. And it was the medical profession as well as many other groups that agitated for the laws. And there's a pretty good case made that this same concept was built in with racism as well. We do know that opium was used by the Chinese, and the Chinese were not welcomed in this country. We do know that the blacks at times use heroin, opium, and the laws have been used against them. There has been times that it's been recognized that the Latin Americans used marijuana and the laws have been written against them. But lo and behold, the drug that inebriates most of the members of Congress has not been touched because they're over there drinking alcohol. We haven't had many pieces of legislation in the 4 terms I was in Congress, but there was one piece of legislation that came up that was dealt with drugs. Hardly in the area of the freedom discussion that I would like it to be in, but it had to do with legalization of heroin. It wasn't to make it available. It was to merely make it legal for me as a physician to prescribe it to somebody who had intractable pain, that had cancer, and was not responding to morphine. Now, does that sound like so much to ask? And yet, that vote came up, and there was about 20% of the members of Congress that were willing to vote to allow the physician to give the heroin to a dying cancer patient. And their explanation to me was, well, I don't think I could explain it back home. It might be that I won't get easily reelected if it looks like I'm soft on drugs, as he went off to his next cocktail party. No, there's something wrong with the system. We do need a few more people of courage in the U.S. Congress. But who should we blame? The U.S. Congress? Partially. Who else should we blame? You and I. Because we don't do enough to make sure the right people are over there and that we vote for the right people for the presidency and the Congress as well.
So that was a cool clip. Yeah, it was young, and that's because the clip was picked at that time because that's when those letters were actually coming out in the Ron Paul newsletter or whatever, the racist ones. So he's there saying things that are, exactly the polar opposite, criticizing the racist drug war. And there's a lot of those. That's throughout his whole career. He's been, somebody said he's been attacking Czech for 30 years. Yeah, he's been basically answering these questions for a long, long time, and they dig them up every time he starts to get popular, and they just use it as a way of attacking him. I take the man at his word. If he says that he didn't know and he didn't do it, then why would I not believe him? These other guys, and you know that it's total bullshit because they never attacked Newt Gingrich and Michelle Bachmann and all these people for being homophobic, hateful people, and racist and everything else. There's all Rick Perry, oh my God, what was the name of his father's ranch? We won't even get into this stuff, but these guys are actually...
Something Head.
Yeah,
Something
they're
like
actually
that.
racist.
I don't know what exactly what it was.
So, I mean, it's pretty scary, but it's also cool that Ron Paul is still going strong, and it doesn't seem to be stopping him at all, even though they attack him in every single damn magazine, whether it's on the left or on the right. Oh, I saw on Alternate, which I really like a lot. Alternate, for the most part, is great. They published an article saying that Ron Paul's close associate wants to execute gays. Or somebody that's supporting Ron Paul wants to execute gays. Or what was the other one? Somebody that was supporting Ron Paul as a racist. Or he was the Stormwatch guy, or whatever that was, white supremacist in that cases. And so, yeah, they always use these. But, of course, you could find some crazy person that supports anybody. But they never drag that out unless they just have nothing. And, of course, CNN, I was watching CNN last night, and it's been funny, actually, over the last couple of days, watching CNN and how they respond. Jody was mentioning before that old truism about first they ignore you, and then they laugh at you, and then they attack you, and then you win. But with Ron Paul, what they've done is they attacked him, and it didn't work, and they've gone back to ignoring him now because it wasn't successful. And yesterday, CNN had a poll. Well, Jody showed us a clip. They tried to. Jody showed us a clip showing Ron Paul leading 24, and Romney was at 21%. And CNN was only showing a poll of likely Republican voters, and they weren't showing the liberal or the libertarians and Democrats who are allowed to switch and vote. And that's Ron Paul has a lot of support through them. But CNN was only focusing on this one particular poll that they did that only showed likely Republican voters, and they were calling Mitt Romney the front runner, even though he wasn't ahead in the polls. So more shady journalism from propaganda mill CNN. These Fox News clips are better than CNN these days. Really, they are. I mean, geez. They were actually giving Ron Paul a chance to talk and having him on and his campaign managers on and stuff. Well, CNN, they just attack him, that Gloria Borger. They did a hit piece and edited it, chopped it up so it looked like he walked out of the interview, but they really cut out like a long piece in the middle where he was graciously answering her questions, and then the interview was over and he started taking his microphone off, and then she started asking the question again. Creative editing made it look like he was getting grumpy or something. But anyway.
I have no information confirming this, but I've heard it said that the media organizations are infiltrated by the various intelligence organizations to keep them on message, and it's something you never hear about in the media organizations. And maybe it's because it's just a conspiracy theory.
Yes,
but probably not.
Well,
considering their behavior, it seems that something is definitely up.
It's funny you mentioned that because Greg and I were talking yesterday or on Wednesday about Bob Marley and how he died, and it's kind of a conspiracy theory about how Bob Marley died. He had cancer of the toe, but supposedly he was given a boot by, what's his name, Carl Colby, and he is a supposed filmmaker who was there visiting Bob when they were under attack from a death squad in Jamaica, and they were in hiding. The whalers were all there in hiding, being guarded by a bunch of Rastafari guys with big machetes. And this one white boy filmmaker was there and gave Bob this pair of boots. And he put his foot into the boot, and he pricked himself on a piece of copper wire that was wedged and was sticking out with a really something sharp on the end. Well, a few years later, over time, he ended up getting cancer in that toe and broke it. It was never mended, never fixed. And he ended up getting some sort of brain cancer directly from his toe and dying. And so it turns out that the guy who gave him the boot is the son of William Colby, the director of the CIA for years. William Colby, Bill Colby. And he's now, this guy, who in the story gave Bob the boot, has now made a movie about his dad, who has been dead for a while, Bill Colby. But the reason I thought of it was because William Colby has a quote, and this is the head of the CIA talking, mind you, and he says, anybody of any major significance in the mainstream media is bought and paid for by the CIA. That's what he said. I think that's a paraphrase, but it's nearly direct. Everybody. And so anybody of any major significance. That's a lot of people. Do you believe it? Who knows? But I don't doubt it.
It seems pretty likely the way that the media consistently has skewed the news for as long as I can remember, since I was a little kid.
It's a propaganda mill. Well,
Yeah, exactly.
but see, the thing is, when you have centralized power, it's a wonder that this happens because you have a very few people in control of all of these different companies, and they all have the same philosophy on life, mentality about the way things should be, and so they design the system to follow behind that.
I suppose. I can't. I don't know what their motives could possibly be, except for the fact that they want to control people and stay in power.
Right. Well, they're not going to do anything that's outside their worldview, and they're rich and powerful, and so they don't want to leave that lifestyle. And the media is the way you maintain it.
That's right. They certainly do not want.
We're good media.
We're good media. Make your own media. See, the internet.
Media is
2012. It's going to break all that down. The internet is.
They had to infiltrate media because normally it's a good thing.
Yes.
6 p.m.
6 p.m. 2 hours. It was a 2-hour episode today, guys. Thanks for those who stuck it out. There's still 43 viewers chilling. That's pretty good after a couple hours. And I hope you guys had fun. Check out the stuff on the front page of CC. As always, thanks to Jody for being here on the show. Marius, Marijuana Man. And Melly, why don't you come out here? Why don't you come on and say hello? I tell everybody all the time on the show that you're the one who gave me Princess. So you should come and be on the show. You've never been on the show before. This is Mel Hempsey. She gave me the bong. And so, Mel, you're going away tomorrow or something.
Yeah.
You're leaving Vancouver for a while.
Yeah, for a while.
Oh. You'll be back. What are you going to do? You're going to blow glass, aren't you?
Well, we'll see.
You'll see?
I don't know.
Oh, you're going to. Oh, I see. We're telling secrets. Right.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for watching. And will we be back next week? What day is it? Of course we will.
Of course we will.
We're always around.
What day
We
will
will
it
need
be,
you guys.
It'll be the 6th.
Yeah. Well, whatever it is, we'll be here.
In 2012, last year.
Well, Opus, I think Opus isn't back till the 9th, he said, or something. So I don't know. He's on vacation. But I'm sure Marijuana Man and Al will be back next week.
That makes sense. Yeah.
And Jody recorded her show today, and that should be, I guess Marijuana Man's working on that over there right now, so that'll probably be up tonight or tomorrow. And yeah, keep checking us out on Pod TV. And if you're in the neighborhood, come down and see us here, 307 West Hastings. Oh, there's still a day left of the sale, isn't there, Jody?
Yeah, it goes till January 1st.
The Hot Boxing Day sale. If you're in the neighborhood or if you're online, cannabisculture.com/store. You can find a lot of cool stuff. 20% off.
Free shipping in North America.
That's right, free shipping. It's like we're giving stuff away. It'd be crazy to not go to cannabisculture.com/store right now and buy something. All right, guys. Love you. Peace.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year. Thanks for watching.